How often do you apologize for speaking? Not for being rude, not for interrupting, but just speaking, just showing up, just being in the room with your full self. If you've ever felt the need to shrink, to soften your voice so others don't flinch, this story might feel like a mirror. I met Alice in a bar one Friday night. She was sitting at the far end of our shared table, not by design, just by chance. The place was too crowded, and our groups had to squeeze in together. There were too many drinks on the table, too much noise, too many stories bouncing from corner to corner. The others were loud, trading stories about summer trips, internships, and office drama. It was one of those nights where everyone was trying to outdo each other, who traveled further, who had the funniest moment, who was the wildest. Alice didn't say much. She laughed politely when someone cracked a joke, nodded when spoken to, and kept her hands wrapped around a ginger ale she barely touched. You could tell she was listening, really listening, but she stayed on the sidelines, like someone who's learned long ago that their presence was more accepted when silent. Then someone asked her a direct question. I don't remember what it was, something simple like, "What did you do this summer?" And Alice, still quiet, said she went on a volunteer trip to Yemen. The table paused. Yemen? And just like that, the attention shifted. People leaned in. They asked more. She started talking about sandstorms, about teaching kids under tarps, about learning to eat mutton with her hands. Her eyes lit up. Her words were careful but full of life. And yet, after every few sentences, she'd drop her head slightly and say, "Sorry, I'm rambling. Sorry, this probably isn't interesting. Sorry if I sound like I'm bragging." She apologized for every paragraph of her story. She apologized for having lived something extraordinary. She apologized for speaking at all. And I couldn't stop thinking about how many people, maybe you, maybe me, carry this same invisible weight. This is not just shyness, this is not modesty, this is a wound, and it starts early. It starts in childhood, when your voice doesn't land anywhere. Many of us were not raised in environments where our voices felt safe. We weren't encouraged to speak up. We were trained to behave, to stay quiet, to not make it about us. When you grow up in an environment where your feelings are minimized or ignored, you start to believe that your voice doesn't matter. Maybe you were told, "Don't make a big deal out of it. You're being too sensitive. Stop being dramatic." Or worst of all, silence. Maybe you were told you were too sensitive or too much, or that your dreams were unrealistic. Maybe you spoke and no one listened. And so, as children, we learn to withdraw. Not because we don't have things to say, but because we believe no one wants to hear them. That's how it begins. The first apology isn't spoken, it's felt. It's the quiet retreat from your own self. Then we turn into adults who whisper instead of speaking. You grow up and the world doesn't magically become a softer place. The patterns just evolve. From playgrounds to offices, from classrooms to relationships. What was once a teacher dismissing your ideas becomes a colleague talking over you in a meeting. What was once a parent telling you to be quiet becomes a partner who doesn't ask how your day was. And slowly, you internalize this script. If I speak, I might make things worse. If I take up too much space, someone will push me out of it. So, you adapt. You water yourself down. You become efficient, agreeable, careful. You smile when something hurts. You say it's okay when it isn't. You wait for others to speak first, not out of politeness, but out of fear that you'll be unwanted noise. You learn to whisper instead of speak, not literally, but emotionally. Your truths become smaller. Your opinions come with disclaimers. Your stories end with apologies. And the more you do this, the more the world confirms your fears. People don't hear you because you've trained them not to listen. People assume you're fine because you've hidden the evidence that you're not. And here's the saddest part. After a while, you stop expecting to be heard at all. You start believing that your silence is your personality, not your protection, that you're just the quiet one, when really, you're just trying to survive rooms that never felt safe. But you are not a whisper. You are a voice, one that was silenced, not broken. And healing isn't about shouting. It's about believing that you deserve to be heard, even if your voice trembles at first. You stop asking for help because you think your needs are a burden. This part runs deep, doesn't it? At some point, you stopped asking for help, not because you didn't need it, but because you believed that needing something made you weak. Maybe every time you cried as a kid, someone told you to toughen up. Maybe you were taught that independence is strength and dependence is shame. Maybe you reached out for comfort and were met with annoyance, rejection, or silence. So you learned to self-soothe, to endure, to function even when you're bleeding inside. And you became good at it. Too good. So good that even in your darkest moments, people say, "You're so strong." But you're not strong. You're isolated. You're aching for someone to see through the mask, but terrified of being called dramatic. So now, when you're tired, you say, "I'm just a little busy." When you're overwhelmed, you say, "It's fine, I can handle it." And when you're breaking, you smile. You push through pain because stopping would mean admitting you're not okay. And somewhere deep down, you believe that being not okay makes you unlovable. But here's what you need to hear. Needing help doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. You are not designed to go through life carrying everything alone. You don't get a gold medal for suffering in silence. Ask yourself this: would you ever look at a friend and say, "Don't you dare ask for help. It means you're a burden"? Of course not. But that's exactly what you tell yourself every day. This belief that your needs are too much isn't your fault. It was given to you. And it's time to give it back. You are not difficult. You are not inconvenient. You are not a problem to manage. You're a person with needs, and those needs matter, even if no one ever told you they did. You stop talking about the things you've done, not because you're not proud, but because somewhere along the way, pride began to feel like arrogance. Maybe you were once excited about something, a project you finished, a compliment you received, a small victory, and someone made a face, rolled their eyes, told you, "Well, that's not a big deal," and it stuck. That comment, that shrug, that look, it became a script that plays in your head now. Don't share too much. Don't make it about you. Who do you think you are? So now you play it small. You brush off compliments. You downplay your efforts. You call the things you've worked hard for luck. You've convinced yourself that if it's not groundbreaking or Instagram-worthy or life-altering, it doesn't count. But here's the truth. Everything counts. The battles you fought in silence, the habits you've unlearned, the progress no one else could see. You are allowed to be proud of things others overlook. You are allowed to speak about yourself without apology. You are allowed to clap for yourself, even if no one else joins in. And if someone rolls their eyes, let them. That's not about you. That's about them not knowing what it takes to survive and rebuild yourself. Because what you carry may not be visible, but it's real, and it's yours. Own it, celebrate it, speak it out loud. You become socially awkward because you've been taught that you're too much or not enough. You walk into a room and immediately start scanning. Who's safe? Who's judging me? Am I talking too much? Am I not saying enough? You laugh too loudly, then overthink it for an hour. You share something, then replay it 100 times in your head. You leave a conversation convinced that you came across as weird or annoying or just wrong. This isn't shyness. It's not introversion. It's trauma showing up in social spaces. Because maybe when you were a child, you were made to feel that your presence was either too loud or not welcome at all. Maybe you were punished for being energetic, or silenced for being emotional, or ignored until you gave up trying. And now you exist in this limbo, afraid to take up too much space, but also afraid of disappearing completely. Social awkwardness isn't a personality flaw, it's often a scar, a sign that you've spent years walking on emotional eggshells. And here's something no one tells you. You're not actually bad at talking to people. You've just spent too much time with people who made you feel unsafe to be yourself. But you are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not awkward. You're cautious because you've been hurt. So start small. Find one person who listens without judging. Give yourself permission to speak without scripting. Let go of the need to be perfectly normal, whatever that even means. You weren't made to be invisible. You were made to be real. And real people aren't always polished or predictable, but they are always worth knowing. You say, sorry, just for existing, because deep down you believe you are the problem. There comes a point, and maybe you've already reached it, where you find yourself apologizing for things no one asked you to apologize for. You say, sorry, when someone bumps into you. You say sorry before you speak. You say sorry when you take a breath too loud, or take up a little too much space in a conversation, or God forbid, express a need. And it sounds like nothing, but what it actually says is, I'm afraid I'm too much. I'm afraid you'll get mad at me for being here. I'm sorry, I exist in a way that might bother you. This isn't politeness, this is survival. It's what happens when your very presence has been met with irritation, or criticism, or emotional punishment. It's what happens when love was conditional, based on your silence, your behavior, your ability to not rock the boat. And now, even when no one is angry at you, you anticipate it. Even when no one is criticizing you, you brace for it. You apologize, not because you did anything wrong, but because your nervous system is trained to expect rejection. This chronic self-apology becomes your shield, your attempt to preempt abandonment, disappointment, punishment, as if saying sorry first will soften the blow, or make it less likely to come at all. But here's the truth. You don't need to apologize for being, not for your voice, not for your feelings, not for your timing, not for your space in this world. You are not the inconvenience. You are not the disruption. You are not a guest in your own life. You are allowed to show up unapologetically and still be loved. And maybe the healing starts here, not with loud rebellion, not with a dramatic transformation, but with a quiet decision to stop shrinking, to say what you mean without a disclaimer, to walk into a room without asking for forgiveness, because you were never the problem. You just lived in spaces that made you feel like one. So now what? What do you do when you realize you've spent your whole life shrinking? When you've been apologizing for your voice, your feelings, your dreams, your very presence? You start with noticing. Noticing the sorry before it leaves your lips. Noticing the way your body tenses when you ask for something. Noticing how quickly you shut yourself down before anyone else can. And then, you get curious. Where did I learn this? Whose voice do I still carry when I silence myself? Whose disappointment am I still trying to avoid? Because the healing doesn't start with a scream, it starts with a whisper, a quiet no more. No more minimizing, no more apologizing for having joy or grief or needs. No more explaining yourself like your existence needs justification. And yes, it will feel awkward. It will feel unnatural. You'll feel guilty at first, even for the smallest acts of self-respect. But keep going, because every time you choose to take up space, every time you speak without shrinking, ask without apologizing, exist without flinching, you're building a new home inside yourself, a place where you are safe to be you. And one day, you'll notice the difference. You'll speak and not feel the need to look around for permission. You'll sit at the table without over-explaining why you deserve to be there. You'll laugh too loud and not replay it later. And most importantly, you'll stop saying sorry for being human, because you were never meant to be invisible. You were meant to be real, messy, complicated, radiant, real. So speak. Take your time, take your space, take your healing. You don't owe anyone an apology for becoming whole. If this spoke to something deep inside you, if you've spent too long apologizing for your existence, for your dreams, your voice, your emotions, then maybe it's time we start healing that together. Tell me in the comments what's something you've been made to feel too much for, that you're finally ready to own without apology. If you felt seen today, don't forget to like this video. It helps others find it too. And if you want more content that feels like a conversation with the part of you no one else sees, subscribe. There's more coming. You're not broken, you're rebuilding, and that matters. See you in the next one.